In 2006, the U.S. Department of State asked Shared Hope International a simple question: what is driving the markets of sex trafficking? But we found a more insidious, pervasive force propelling the commercial sex industry forward and creating the market for sex trafficking. Demand. People who purchase sex acts with children intentionally or carelessly and with little fear.
It's the world of prostitution. I mean, you never know what you're gonna get, and if it's gonna be a pretty girl, ugly girl.
But the truth is, it's not prostitution, because there is no such thing as a child prostitute. Here's why. There is a federal law called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which states that any minor used in a commercial sex act is a victim of sex trafficking, and anyone buying or selling that child is engaging in the crime of sex trafficking. And this happens in America. A 2010 study conducted by the Shapiro Group measured demand for commercial sex with children in Georgia. It found that over 400,000 men in Georgia today have bought sex with a young female. And in any given month, 7,200 men will buy sex with an adolescent female in Georgia. 3 escalated warnings were given to callers seeking to buy sex with a, quote, young female. 47% of the men were undeterred, and it's not just Georgia. What does this mean for the rest of our nation? We investigated cases that have been brought against buyers in the past 5 years. We wanted to see how many buyers are actually arrested for their crimes and what type of sentences they face.
If there's no demand, there'll actually be no supply. If I put something on a shelf and no one is buying it, I'm going to take it off the shelf.
I'm not the cause of prostitution, and sometimes I make mistakes and I may go out there, but I didn't pick her up in no daggone playground. She wasn't at hiding behind a school bus or getting off a school bus. This is a working girl that came to my room. It's all clean. I don't have to worry about your feelings. I got to worry about, it's all clean. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right, but God, I think it's the oldest affection in the world.
They want what they want, and they want to get gone. I don't think no man that have anything to do with prostitution care about any female.
I got into a car with the buyer, and a few minutes later the police pulled us over and they pulled me out the car. And the buyer, on his face, he thought I was the police, like, he had a confused look on his face. But then when I got pulled out the car, like, like they were very rough on me, like, come with us, they read me my rights, but they told the buyer, hey, you need to get out of there.
The TVPA carries hefty penalties for buyers, but this is a federal law. What about the state laws? If a state does not have strong laws to prosecute buyers, buyers are lightly punished, if at all, and therefore undeterred. Michael Gilliland, the former Sunflower Farmers Market's CEO, was charged with felony child prostitution in Arizona after soliciting sex with a person he believed to be a teenager. He faced a sentence that ranged from probation to 18 months in prison. He was sentenced to only 30 days in prison. Gilliland is not alone. Lawrence Taylor, Hall of Fame linebacker for the New York Giants and guest commentator on ESPN, paid $300 for sex with a 16-year-old girl in a New York hotel room. Under the federal TVPA, Taylor could have been convicted of a felony with a sentence of 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. But in a New York State courtroom, he pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanors and was sentenced to just 6 years of probation, not a day in jail. And the victim, the 16-year-old girl, was left to rebuild her life without justice. Studies of men who buy sex in Boston and Chicago found that 80% of men would be deterred from purchasing sex if they had to serve jail time if caught. Almost 90% of the men in Boston said they would be deterred if they had to register as a sex offender as a consequence.
So when addressing the issue of demand, it becomes hard for us during the course of our investigations to identify the various buyers that are out there. Oftentimes they have very limited interaction with the individuals providing the services. The girls typically don't keep good records. And so during the course of our investigations, it becomes increasingly more difficult to identify and prosecute them.
So few buyers being arrested for their trafficking crime, and how many of those are actually punished? As a nation, are we doing everything we can to protect our children? Are we enforcing our criminal laws against sex trafficking? Shared Hope International is investigating which states are letting buyers walk free and which states are demanding justice.